Hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're doing well and in the best of your health. And welcome here in another episode of the machine learning in general. Uh, let's say we're starting a new series. We still didn't finish with the JAX. We still have another sessions about JAX, but today we will move to a new episode to talk about the generative AI. So before starting our session, you are with Leila Habib, a GDG CD Abbas lead and a WTM ambassador. So just like let's forget about the previous series that we did together here in the DevMina. We talk about the TensorFlow in general and JAX for deep learning. Today, we're starting a new series to talk about the generative AI. But don't worry, we'll still finishing the previous series in the next future sessions. So now let's say that machines are now as a component as human in creating all type of concepts and content. Okay, so exactly the role of machine learning previously was to mimic the human behavior. And that's what we are seeing here nowadays. So machines are able to create all type of content, all type of concepts. And this is possible thanks to the technology of computer calculations of the data produced by the generative AI. So today, inshallah, we will try to dive in this new word. It's not a new word, but it's a trendy word nowadays, and especially after the releasing of the ChatGPT. I believe that every one of you at least used it before. So by the release of ChatGPT, everyone started talking about these new terms in not new terms, but these terms about machine learning or about the generative AI. So today, inshallah, we'll try to explore this new type here. Okay, so before digging into the generative AI, let's have a small recap, just like to link you about what you learned previously and what you know, because I believe that everyone who's watching this session today has at least a small idea about machine learning or at least heard about it. Okay, so even if you're not mastering machine learning or if you don't have any idea about machine learning, we'll try to have a recap here. So the field of machine learning or the field of artificial intelligence is rapidly evolving. So, and with it, the concept and the techniques that are used to develop models that can learn from data. And among this, how we call it, those concepts here, we have machine learning, deep learning, or the generative AI here. Okay, so especially here, machine learning and deep learning in general and generative AI, on the other hand, are two widely used approach in this field. Okay, so let's have a small differentiation between those three fields or those four fields here, because we used to see similar architecture or similar schema that contain only artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. And now here we're having a new baby appearing here in our schema. So to talk about the difference between those three subfields here, we have artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is anything that seems to be smart, everything that's mimic the human behavior. Okay? So it's big and it's general. Anything that we can consider it as a smart topic or smart thing, it's an artificial intelligence. Okay, and then this artificial intelligence have some babies, have some subfields here, and here we can talk about machine learning. And what make machine learning special comparing to the global artificial intelligence is that we have some statistics and some math behind machine learning. We train data, the model try to extract some insights, some patterns from this data to train a model or to be able to do specific tasks, to do predictions or anything like that. Okay, so this is the main difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence. And here we can say that any project or anything that is a part of machine learning is part of artificial intelligence. But not anything that is artificial intelligence, it's a machine learning. Okay, because here artificial intelligence is the big circle that we have. It's the big thing or the big topic that we can talk about. It's englobe everything here, and machine learning it's only subfield of it. Okay, it's a tiny part of this artificial intelligence. Fine, and then inside machine learning also we have a lot of other fields, and one of the famous field is deep learning. Okay, so what's the difference between deep learning and machine learning? Just like here in deep learning, we use what we call it neurons. Okay, so here we need to apply neural networks in our projects, in our task, to finally say that this is a deep learning thing. And I repeat, those neural networks are also a type of machine learning. So if I ask you the question, is neural networks a part of machine learning? The answer should be yes. Why? Because here deep learning and neural network in general are part of machine learning. So any deep learning project is a machine learning project, but not any machine learning project is deep learning. Okay? I hope that you got this differentiation between those two fields here. So deep learning, it's a subfield of machine learning. And what makes it special is that we use neurons. We talked in previous session about neural networks. So in case you're wondering about the definition of deep learning, machine learning, and so on, I believe that links through the TensorFlow series was published in the comments, or it will be shared soon with you in the comments, so you can check the playlist of TensorFlow to understand more about deep learning and machine learning. And here comes the generative AI. Okay, so generative AI, it's a subfield of deep learning. It's a tiny part of deep learning that we use it also to do some to generate some new things. Okay, and here in this session, inshallah, we'll try to dive deeper in this field and to talk about a lot about generative AI. So let's forget about all the previous things and let's focus more on this generative AI. Fine. But before talking about generative AI, I want you to understand better about how machine learning works, okay? Or what we call it, how this discriminative models works. And here it's include machine learning and deep learning in general, that we do training on specific data sets, and then we get predictions based on the training that we do on unseen data sets. Okay, so many of you have already used this modeling, I believe. Otherwise, here we will try to explain that. Generally, all those who are interested here in the generative AI already built a machine learning model or deep learning model to solve, for example, a classification problems in machine learning or in deep learning in general. Okay, so being expressed of machine learning and deep learning algorithm, this discriminative modeling is not limited to classification tasks. It's also widely used in object detection, in semantic segmentation, I don't know, in key point detection, regression problems, language modeling. Okay, so everything that we did in the TensorFlow series, if you remember, all those are part of this modeling. Okay, so this discriminative model falls under the supervised learning branch. Remember when we talk about the type of machine learning, and we said that we have supervised and unsupervised learning. So here we're talking about this supervised learning branch. And in this classification task, for example, given the idea, the data is labeled. Okay, so we have, for example, a bunch of pictures of cats and dogs, and we say this is a cat, so the label is a cat. This is a dog, so the label should be a dog, and so on. Okay, so we kind of have labeled data sets, and it tries to distinguish among classes. And not cat and dogs, it's only an example. Maybe you can use it for traffic light, for tracks, and so on. Okay, so this is also known as the classifiers. And these models correspond an image sample. So we have a group of images, let's call them X, to classes or to labels Y. So each image inside this class should have a label there. Okay? And then we discovered the probability of image sample X in X belonging to the label Y and so on. Okay? So here, for example, let's say we're having a group of images of dogs and cats, and all those dogs and cats are labeled. So we say this picture is a cat, this picture is a dog. Then the model will do training. Okay, so when we do training, the model try to extract some insight, some patterns from those images to know the difference between dogs and cats. This is a dog, this is a cat, and so on. And then to do prediction, we should give it a test data. This data is in seen data set. Okay, it's a data set that wasn't a part of those images here that we're having here. So this is another existing image, but it's not a part of the training data. So when we give the model this new image, this new existing image, okay, so I precise it's an already existing image, but it's unseen for the model. My model didn't saw it before. So here, when we test the model with this new data, it's give us prediction. For example, here we're having some labels of the, I think it's a Picasso and the Van Gogh images painting here. So the model will train to distinguish those painting is for the artist X, and this is the painting is for artist Y, and so on. So each artist here have his own style in painting, in doing those paintings here. So when I give it a new unseen data, so my model didn't saw this image before. Those are the only data set that we have. So this image wasn't seen before by my model. And here my model will try to do prediction based on the patterns that was learned from my training data set from here. Okay, so here this is the discriminative model, and this is how things works. We train a model, we give it the data with the labels. The model do training, extract insights and labels, and then we test the model by unseen data set, and that's what we call it the generalizing. I mean, the model try to generalize what is learned here on some unseen data set, and it will give me probabilities, because nothing is absolute in machine learning. All what we have is some probabilities. So here the model will tell me that the probability of this image to belong on this thing is that, and so on. Okay, so this is about what we used to do. And of course, we have a lot of models that include here. We can list the SVM, the support vector machine, the logistic regression, the k-nearest neighbor, random forest, decision trees, and also we can list the deep learning, deep neural network. Okay, so here both machine learning and deep learning are under this umbrella here. Okay, so all the neural network things also, it's a part of this discriminative models. And also here we can go further to the to some advanced algorithms such as the AlexNext, I mean, the VGGNet, the ResNet, and so on. Okay, so all those images are part of this. As long as we are training the model on group of data, the model try to extract patterns, and then we test it on some unseen data sets. Fine. Let's move now to the generative model, and we'll see what's the difference, what's the main difference between those two things. Okay, so here the generative AI, if you want to have a Google definition, we can say that it's a subset of the deep learning, exactly like what we saw in the previous architecture. So generative AI here is a subfield of deep learning model that can produce new content based on what it's described in the input. Okay, so here we have input data, and they try to extract a new output based on this training data. Okay, so the collection of generative AI models that can produce language, code, and image generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence that is capable of generating a new and an original content. And this content could be images, music, videos, text, okay, anything, okay, that is did not previously exist. Okay, it's totally new. I mean, it doesn't exist before. So generative AI systems are designed to learn and to mimic the patterns and characterize of the particular type of data, and then use that knowledge to create new content that is similar to the original data. And it provides AI models to build a model or to build powerful applications there. Okay, so this is the generative AI. We have some data. Okay, so we don't matter here about the labels. We just like give it data. For example, I want a model that will generate images for me, images for horses, for example. So I give it a group of horses images. The model will do an observation, will try to capture those information here, try to, based on the patterns learned from the training, to generate a new model. I mean, those generated samples, those generated things, they really don't exist before. They are totally new. They didn't exist before. Okay, so this horse, you can't find it before. This one is totally new. Same thing for this one. So here it's a new generating things. Okay, so for instance, consider the generative model trained on a data set of those horses here. So its purpose is to generate a novel horse images. So if this generative model were entirely, let's say, uh, how you say it, if the I mean here, based on those labeling here, based on this given input, the resulting here is some new content. Okay, so it's totally new here, this those outputs here. And of course, to push the model to generate those new things, we have some extra things, because remember here, to give a prediction, we're giving it an unseen data set. So here in the generative AI, we're giving it a random noise. Okay, so the inclusion here of this random part component here in this generative model introduce an element of an unpredictable, enabling the model to produce a diverse output while maintaining similarity to training the data. Okay, so this inherent uncertainty in, let's say, in creativity, to force the creativity here, enabling this generative model to produce a fresh and a let's say, fresh and totally new content here. Okay, so consider, let's say, for instance, let's take the example without this random noise here. So consider the generative models here trained on the data set, and its paper is the purpose is to generate a new data set or new images of horses. Okay, so here, if we don't give this random noise, we are we will face the problem of generating the same images in each time we are executing this model. Okay, and this kind of boring. Okay, I want to generate new images in each time I run this model. So that's why we're add some randomness here. So by adding this random elements in the generative process, the model can generate different images of horses here, of cats or anything with each run. So in each time I run this model, I'm sure that I will have a new generative things. And this variability allows to generate a rich array of horse images here, and all while preserving the essence of the original training data set. So those output looks like the training data set, but they are new. They are totally new. I mean, we save the subject here. We want to generate new horses. So generative AI will generate new horses, but those horses don't exist or didn't exist before. Okay, so just let me give you one of the famous examples of the of using the generative AI, which is this person doesn't exist. I don't know if you tried before, but this website here, just like it generates for us a new person that doesn't exist before. Okay, so here this face here look familiar, and not look familiar, but it seems like a real person. Okay, we can say that this is a real person, but in fact, it's not real. It was generated using the generative AI. Okay, one of the algorithms, for example, maybe the GANs or any algorithm that may generate new topics here. And in each time I refresh using some randomness, I will get a new generated faces here. And also this woman here, this female here, it doesn't exist. Okay, so this person doesn't exist before, but it seems like real. But it was generated using the generative AI. If I refresh again, I will find here another person and so on. And also here, the website was updated. So we can specify the gender. For example, I want females in the age between 26 to 35. And here, maybe it's a white. And then we refresh the image. And like that, we can get an image based on those criteria that we gave. A female, the range age is from 26 to 35, and she's white female. But in fact, this girl doesn't exist. It was generated here using this generative AI, okay, to generate random faces here with just like doing a refresher here. Okay, just let me check the comments if you have any questions. Do you have any question, guys? Any question? Is it clear for everyone? So here, generative AI, what's different the machine learning or the previous model that we used to do with these new things is that generative AI generate new things, new image, new audio, a new text. But the previous thing is just like we have data, we trained on it, and then we test it on some tested data set or on the test data set. Yes, so if you have any question, please don't hesitate to write it down here in the chat. I will be checking the chat from time to time. Okay, is it it's very clear, thanks. Okay, thank you so much for following with me, Suad. Thank you so much, girl. Fine, so let's continue since you don't have any question. So let's talk a little bit about how does the generative AI works. Okay, so generative AI here start with a prompt that could be in the form of a text. So if you used ChatGPT before, I believe that you was writing down a text, and then the text was generated for you, or even text generation, like not even ChatGPT. Like when you ask a model to continue the text, for example, I want to generate some text based on some keyword. Let's say I type the sky is in the cloud, and then I want my model to finish what's coming next to write a novel or an article. So here, generative AI will start with a prompt. I mean, we have a key, and then it starts to generate text like ChatGPT. I believe yes, you used ChatGPT before. It's maybe an image, a video, a design, even the music notes or any input that the AI system here can process. So various AI algorithms then return a new content in the response to the prompt content that can include essays, solutions, problem. For example, in ChatGPT, we ask it a question and then it will give us an answer. Okay, maybe in the DALL-E we give it an image, we give it a text, and it will generate an image for us. Okay, so for those who never used DALL-E before, so let's try it here together. This DALL-E is just like ChatGPT, but ChatGPT generate text for you. Here, DALL-E will generate some images for you. Okay, for example, let's say I want cat hugging dog. So this model here will generate for me pictures of cats that are hugging dogs. Okay, so it will take time here to generate those things here. Okay, and here different pictures of cats hugging dogs. Okay, maybe here cats reading news. So here we will get a group of images of cats that are really reading news. Okay, so here some cats reading news. Okay, it's a drawn. Anything that you want to draw it here. Uh, Anything that you want to print it here, it will generate images for you. And by the way, those images here doesn't exist before, so they are generated using the generative AI. Maybe I can share with you this link of this thing here. So maybe we can share this here. So can we write it in Arabic or in German? So I'm not sure if it's accept all languages, but I will share it with you and you can try any language that you want. Okay, so I believe that Arabic will work. And I don't know, I'm not sure about German. So here I'm sharing the link with you and you can try it by your end. Okay, but I believe that the majority majority of language will work here, especially that they're starting improving these techniques or those profiles here. Fine. So this is about DALL-E. So it's similar to the ChatGPT. By the way, the same company here. It's the OpenAI, the same that perform the ChatGPT. It's perform this generative AI to generate some images. And here, generative AI don't generate only text and images. We can generate some videos. It can generate some music notes, anything that you want to generate it. You can find an API that can do that for that. Okay, so like we can say that the early version of generative AI requires submitting data via an API or otherwise a complicated process, but developers had to familiarize themselves with the special tools and write an applications using language such as Python to develop those applications that will ease for us, because previously we used to use API, we used to submit APIs to do specific things. So now we have some application that we can do that here, uh, to develop things for better user experience that let you describe a request in a plain language. And after an initial response, you can also customize the result with the feedback. For example, I don't know if you used ChatGPT before, but sometimes we ask ChatGPT to do something, and then we get an answer, and then we're not really, we don't really like the answer, so we give it a feedback. For example, I asked it a question about to describe the temperature, and the output was about 20 lines, and they want only 2 lines or 3 lines. So I submit a feedback saying, no, I don't want a large text there, so please generate an output in 2 lines only, so it will regenerate for you an output for 2 lines only. Okay, for example, here when we ask for to generate cat readings news, so here everything is animated, is drawn. What if I want real images of cats? So we just like ask it, real images of cats, please. Okay, here there is a surprise me that will generate anything for you, and any fine. So this is about how really generative AI works. So we just like give it this prompt, just like a kind of request. We give it a request, and it will generate for us. And of course, it was trained on a lot of plenty of data sets. Okay, so please, guys, at any moment, if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask. I will be reading the chat from time to time. Fine. Now let's move to the types of the generative AI. Of course, there is an algorithm behind these things. Of course, it's not do those things by itself or using the traditional machine or the classical machine learning algorithm. So here we'll talk about those three main things. For example, we have the variational autoencoders. So those variational autoencoders are types of generative AI system that are trained to learn a low-dimensional representation of data and use this representation to generate a new data points that are similar to the original data set. So if we give it images of horses, it will give me a new images of horses. I mean, those horses didn't exist before, but of course with some variations. Okay, so here this variational autoencoders is a generative model that enforce a prior on, let's say, the latent vector. So they all lay on the let's what you call it, the Gaussian plans, or have some Gaussian profile to generate some new things. Okay, so instead of mapping the image on a point in space, it will map on the entire vector there. So this is about the variational autoencoders here. And we have also the generative adversarial networks here, or what we call them GANs. So those here, they are type of generative AI system that consists of two neural networks, a generator and a discriminator. Okay, exactly like what we saw previously. So the generator creates new data points, while the discriminator tries to distinguish between the generated data and the original data. And over time, this generator improves its ability to create data that is more realistic and harder for discriminator to distinguish from the original to from the generated one from the original one. Okay, because it improves over time. As you know, every day we have new things appears in those technologies here, so it's became a little bit harder to make a differentiation or to distinguish between the original data and the generated data point here. And here we have another thing, which is the autoregressive models. And those also are another type of generative AI system that generate new data points one at a time. Okay, so based on the probabilities of previous data points in the sequence. So this model are often used for generating text, as they can learn the patterns from the language and generate new sentences that are grammatically corrected and coherent. Okay, so those are the main things that we can use to do those things. anything. Of course, we can list another algorithm, another techniques, or another mechanism such as transformers with large language models using the attentions and so on. But here I'm just like giving you an overview or the generative aid, a general idea about how really the what's a kind of types of generative AI that can be used to do a specific task for specific things. Okay, and maybe we'll have some other sessions to talk all about those types here, and we'll try to build models using those types here. So here, let's move for what are the use cases. Checking the chat if there is any question here. Fine. So let's move to the use cases. Of course, this generative AI can be applied in various use cases to generate virtuality, any kind of content. So the technology is becoming more accessible to user of all kinds of contents, let's say, and this is thanks to some cutting edges, for example, like GPT that can be tuned for different applications. Okay, so some of the applications of the generative AI, we have the implementing chatbots for customer services and technical support. We can add deploying deepfake for mimicking people or even specific individuals, improving debugging for movies and educational content in different languages, maybe to translate one video to another languages here, writing email response, uh, providing a resume for you, creating some photorealistic art. Okay, so it's really huge and vast how we can use this generative AI nowadays, and there are plenty of applications, plenty of things that may help us to do those specific tasks here. So those are the main things, and of course we can list some applications here, such as the ChatGPT, the DAL-E, and here this BART from Google. BART is just like ChatGPT, but it's built from Google. So if we can talk about those three things, so we said that DAL-E is trained on a large data set of images and their associated text description. Okay, so when we trained the model, we provided images. So we provided images with the text for those images, okay, with a description for these images. So DALL-E is an example of the multimodal AI application that identify connections across multiple media, such as vision, text, and audio. And in this case, it's connect the meaning of the words to visual elements, and it will build to generate some new images. So we enter or we give a description in form of a text, and it will generate for us an output of an image. Okay, and we have the famous ChatGPT. It's also an AI-powered chatbot that took the world by storm in let's say in the last of November last year. It's a new application here, and also it was built by OpenAI. Okay, using GPT-3 implementation. So OpenAI has provided a way to interact and to fine-tune text response via chat interface with an interactive feedback. So if you didn't like the answer, you can correct your sentences, or you can request another thing. So earlier version of the GPT were only accessible via an API GPT-4, and they start releasing some advanced things or some advanced interfaces in that. And then we have the Google, the sorry, we have also here the Google Bard. So the Google Bard here, it's another early leader in chatbots here, using the transformer AI techniques for processing language, and they are type of, let's say, generating some content. So it's an open source, some of these models for researchers. However, it's never released a public interface for these models here. So ChatGPT and BERTs here, maybe they do the same things. Maybe here ChatGPT is better in writing articles or doing, let's say, based on my experience. It's just like it's my point of view after using both of those applications here. But here, ChatGPT is more suitable for writing articles and other things, and here especially for debugging some codes or providing an explanation for some specific codes and so on. Okay, but both of them they are chatbots, and they will help to generate some new elements there. Okay, of course. Here I think we have a question here. أنا صار لي شهرين مخلصة تكوين في ماشين ليرنينج ثيوري تقريبا، وعارفة كتير عن ماشين ليرنينج، ما عندي أدنى فكرة من أين أبدأ. مجالات فهمت أيضا data analysis. Okay, so Suad, maybe by the end of the session, maybe we will try to talk about those things. So here, theory or نظري، يعني الدراسة النظرية هي شيء مهم حتى تفهم الماشين ليرنينج وتفهم الأساسيات، لكن الأهم منها أنها تطبيقي، لأن لا فائدة من أنك تعمل نظري بدون تطبيقي. So here حتى تعمل تطبيقي, maybe you can use some platforms such as Kaggle or Zindi to practice, and there is something for there is competitions there للتعلم فقط. Okay, so maybe by the end of the session, I will try to share with you links here. So we still have some few slides with generative AI, and then نعود للسؤال تاعك. Okay, fine. So this is about this type here. We still have only a few slides. So what are the limitations of the generative AI? Of course, it has limitation. Nothing is perfect. So it does not always identify the source of content, because generally it's extract content from some specific resources. Okay, it will be trained from, for example, ChatGPT or Bard or any other chatbot. It's trained from articles, from books, from let's say blogs, Wikipedia, anything there. So it's try to recuperate this information from a specific content, but generally it don't identify the source of this content here. And sometimes it can be challenges to access the bias of the original source. Let's say the realistic sounding content make it harder to identify inaccurate information or some wrong information there. Okay, so those are those limitations. Sometimes, I don't know if you faced this problem before or not, but sometimes it give us some wrong answers there. So here we don't know whether this answer is good or not. So always we don't trust those answers. This because sometimes it's biased, sometimes it's incorrect, sometimes my question wasn't formed correctly. That's why I'm giving wrong answers and so on. That's why there is something called prompt engineering. It will just like help you to how you ask your question. Okay, if you want those generative models to generate something for you, you should form your question correctly to get a good answers there. And those are the main limitations for the generative AI. And here we are listing some tools or some examples of the generative AI tools. We can list for the text generator tools. We include the GPT, so we can use GPT to generate some text there. For the image generation tools, we can include the DAL-E. Okay, of course, DAL-E is not the only one, but DAL-E is one of the famous examples. For the music generation tools, we can include the Ampere here. And for code generation tools, we can include the code starters. And also, I believe that GitHub Copilot there is also one of the amazing tools that will have to generate some code for us. Okay, so those are the main things that you should know about the generative AI. And I will go back to your question, Suad, to answer you here. So here Saad is asking us about that she started learning about machine learning and deep learning, but mainly only the theoretical part. Okay, she started only with the theoretical part. So here, since you have the basics, okay, مدام السؤال كان بالعربية خلينا نجاوب بالعربية. مدام عندك الجهة النظرية من machine learning and deep learning، so حبذا لو تنتقلي practical side حتى تعملي some تطبيقات. And هنا عندنا أهم واحدة واللي هي كاجل. Okay, it's not Titanic, but Kaggle. So Kaggle here, it's a platform. Maybe I will share it here with you in the comments. So this is Kaggle. I'm sharing it with you in the comments. So here, Kaggle, it's a platform that provides a lot of competitions, and you can do some practice on it. Okay, so here we have s- uh, some competition about knowledge. For example, the Titanic, the house prices, and anything and something else. Okay, so all those problems here. When you enter in this problem, the in specific problem, you'll find here description about the problem, the challenge, about what you should do. For example, here to make a prediction whether passenger X will survive or not. And of course, here we have our data set because we can't build a model without a data set. So here in the data set, we have an explanation about the data set, explaining the training set, the data sets here. And then you can download it here and use it by your local machine. Of course, you can use it in local machine or use the Google Colab there. Fine. And here you have some code, some people who submitted their code. You have discussion whether you have any question. And once you submit your code, there is the leaderboard to say who's the person. It's just like a kind of competition to know who's better and who's doing that. Fine. So this is about the Titanic data set or the knowledge competitions. Of course, we have another competitions. You can find the correction in the internet. Okay, so you try in it. Once you have a problem, especially those famous competitions such as the Titanic or the house pricing. So you can try on it. You do your data exploration, data visualization, modeling, and anything else, and then you compare it with someone else's model. Fine. And what's good about this Kaggle platform is that there are some paid competitions. I mean, you are learning, and at the same time, they provide money for you. Okay, so this is about Kaggle. Inside Kaggle, you can find different types of data sets. So let's say in case you don't need to complete specific competitions, so you can find here a different kind of data set. So even Oppenheimer is here. Fine. So there is plenty of data set there. There is courses. There is different codes, discussion to learn to talk about people, to ask your question, and someone else will answer you. Okay. So this is about Kaggle. Also, there is another African platform called Zindi to solve some African problems. Okay, so to solve those African problems here, and it's the same principle like Kaggle. We have plenty of with plenty of competitions here. Okay, and they are paid competitions. I mean, you apply in it, you submit your things, and if you are the winner, you will get this. You will get paid here from these things. And of course, as I said, it's the same as Kaggle. You can download your data set from here, and there is here discussion to contact with people inside this challenge. I mean, people who are trying to solve the same problem. I mean, here, if you are trying to solve this AI ML for 5G energy and so on, all those people here are working on this challenge, and they do have some problems, so they are submitting their issues here, and other people they are answering them. Okay, so those are the main two famous platforms where you can apply there. And another thing that maybe I can suggest it for you is uh, maybe you can apply for some internship inside a company. Don't care about money, even if you don't get paid. So you just like go for it and try to solve their problem there, to see how developers are doing there inside the company, to learn from them, and like that you will master machine learning, inshallah. Okay, so I hope I helped you here. Okay, so you just like have the feeling of, so here it's up to you. Here it's based on you. uh, I highly recommend for you that you first try to solve it. Once you have a problem, try to Google it, but don't see the example, don't see the solution. Okay, so when you arrive to the point, I mean, you lose hope to have a solution or to have something like that, so you go back to others solutions. Okay, like that you learn. And as I mentioned, the perfect and the ideal things is to seek some internship, to learn from a real engineer inside the company, to know what a real machine learning developer do. Okay, like that you will learn from your peers. Okay, so thank you. Yes, yes, guys, do you have any other question? Any other question related to generative AI or machine learning in general? Yes, so here you have my LinkedIn, my Twitter. I mean, you can contact me if you have some question in the future. Maybe I can share with you content about the generative AI. Okay, it's from Quick Labs. Okay, so here you can find content about the generative AI provided by Google. So they go from beginner to advanced. I mean, there are a lot of courses, a lot of paths that you should follow. Here I'm sharing with you the link here in the chat. And of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask either now or later on Twitter or LinkedIn. So this is my GitHub repository. Also, you can find some different examples, especially about JAX for deep learning to learn there. Okay, waiting a couple of minutes. Maybe we'll have question later. Any question, guys? So fine, we'll try to have a part two in this model to go deeper in the architecture about, let's say, the different types. Maybe we'll talk about the atom coders or GANs in the future, and we'll try to go step by step until we understand well how the generative AI really works and how to build those generative AI. Of course, if you are interested in machine learning or deep learning, so the my playlist, I think it was shared before. You can check TensorFlow and JAX here. What to learn, just like what to learn if I want to learn how to build a voice cloner. Okay, so a voice cloner, what you should learn or what the path that you should follow here. A voice is just like a kind of the natural language processing. Okay, it's the part of the natural language processing. So first of all, you should have an idea about how natural language processing works, and we already had a session about NLP. So you master NLP, and then from the inside this NLP you will see how to deal with text and how to deal with the audio, because here the voices are part of audio there. So you learn about audio, and like that you can generate some new audio, or you can clone some new audio, like to generate, for example, some speech, like we are seeing a specific president saying a speech that he didn't say before. So here we are generating some audio. Okay, so you should first start to learn the path of the NLP. And of course, there is a wonderful course on Coursera to talk about NLP specializations. I mean, to go deeper in NLP, to have all the insights about that. And then you can go to the second part, which is the generative AI, to go deeper and to generate some audio there. Okay, I hope that was helpful for you. Any other concerns? Okay, thank you. Okay, guys. So yeah, if you have any question, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm available on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and I will be so glad to help you in your to solve your problems, inshallah. And like that, we arrive to the end of this session. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for being here with us, and see you in another episode to talk deeper about another topic here in this field of machine learning. Thank you so much. مع السلامة. Bye bye.